Article 296, definition of a band and the penalty incurred by the members thereof. When more than 3 armed malefactors take part in the commission of robbery, it shall be deemed to have been committed by a band. When any of the arms used in the commission of the offense shall be unlicensed firearm, the penalty to be imposed upon the malefactor shall be maximum period of the corresponding penalty provided by law, without prejudice to the criminal liability for illegal possession of such unlicensed firearm. Any member of the band who is present at the commission of the robbery by the band shall be punished as principal of any of the assaults committed by the band unless it be shown that he attempted to prevent the same. Outline of the provision 296. 1. When at least 4 armed malefactors take part in the commission of the robbery, it is deemed committed by a band. 2. When any of the arms used in the commission of robbery is not licensed, the penalty upon the malefactor shall be maximum of the corresponding penalty provided by law, without prejudice to criminal liability for illegal possession of such firearms. And 3. Any members of a band who was present in the commission of the robbery by the band shall be punished as principal of any of the assaults committed by the band unless it be shown that he attempted to prevent the same. What are the requisites for liability for the acts of the other members of the band? A member of the band is liable for any of the assaults committed by the other members thereof when the following requisites concur. 1. That he was a member of the band. 2. That he was present at the commission of the robbery by that band. 3. That the other members of the band committed an assault. And 4. That he did not attempt to prevent the assault. There must be proof that he made an endeavor to prevent the assault committed by another member of the band in order that he may not be held liable for such assault. Inasmuch as the crime committed is robbery in the band, and the accused who denies all intervention therein admits having been present at the commission of the crime without having done anything to prevent the murder of the 3 people, his liability is the same as that of the principals in the crime of robbery with homicide. When is robbery deemed committed by a band? Article 296 provides that when more than 3 armed malefactors take part in the commission of the robbery, it shall be deemed to have been committed by a band. At least 4 armed persons must take part in the commission of the crime. Clubs are arms. Clubs are arms which, in the hands of the members of a band, may be as dangerous to life of one who would resist the depredations of the band as are revolvers or bolos. When the robbery was not committed by a band, the robber who did not take part in the assault of another is not liable for that assault. Thus, in the case where 3 persons committed robbery in a house, 2 of the robbers committed rape upstairs, while the third guarded the owner of the house downstairs. The first 2 were convicted of robbery with rape, while the third was convicted with robbery only. Note that in the case of People versus Basisten, in which it was held that only the one who killed the victim was guilty of robbery with homicide and the other was guilty of robbery by a band, not robbery with homicide, was decided before Article 296 was amended. Before its amendment, it was recorded that robbery be committed by a band and in an inhabited place. When the robbery was not by a band and the homicide was not determined by the accused when they plotted the crime, the one who did not participate in the killing is liable for robbery only. And when Balmeo and Caimo hurried out of the victim's house after the robbery, Pelagio had fled from his lookout post. It was only Balmeo and Caimo who walked together to the place where the Manalang was waiting inside the taxi. It was only when the taxi was about to leave when the shooting of Patrolman Trinidad happened. Ruling: when the homicide was committed, Pelagio could not have had least participation as might justify penalizing him. Likewise for the said killing, the conspirators were agreed only on the commission of robbery. There is no evidence that homicides besides was determined by them when they plotted the crime. All these warrant the exclusion of Pelagio from any of the responsibility for the said crime. Considering that those who actually participated in the crime were only 3, Pelagio included, and only one of them was armed, the same evidently was not in band. It is indeed questionable to hold Pelagio similarly responsible as Caimo and Balmeo for the killing of Patrolman Trinidad. It's only when the robbery is in a band that all those present in the commission of the robbery may be punished for any of the assaults which any of its members might commit. But when there is conspiracy to commit homicide and robbery, all the conspirators, even if less than 4 armed men, are liable for the special complex crime of robbery with homicide. The conspiracy among appellants in the commission of the crime is evident upon the facts proven. Their acts, collectively and individually executed, have demonstrated the existence of a common design towards the accomplishment of a crime of unlawful purpose and objective. The killing of Alfonso Yu and Victor Yu bears a direct relation and intimate connection between the robbery and the killing, for the killing happened during and on occasion of the robbery, whether the latter be prior to or subsequent to the former. For the element of conspiracy having been proven, it is unquestionable that the complex crime of robbery with homicide has been committed, and all the appellants are liable therefore. When a group of malefactors conspire to commit robbery and arm themselves for the purpose, no member of the group may disclaim responsibility for any of the act of violence that is perpetrated by reason or on the occasion of robbery. Such violence is always reasonably to be expected, either to overcome the active opposition or to forestall it altogether by disabling the victim at the very outset, or even to silence him completely thereafter. In the instant case, the group that set out for Batak to rob Kopian was provided with lethal weapons, a dagger, an ice pick, and a gun. These instruments were intended to facilitate the commission of the robbery, and their use resulted in homicide. The liability therefore attached to the entire group. Similarly, when a group of persons armed themselves to hold up jeepney passengers, no member of the group can disclaim responsibility for any violent attack by any one of them. All of those who conspire to commit the crime of robbery, knowing that members of the group are armed for the purpose of attaining their unlawful objective, shall be responsible for the consequences of the criminal acts, in this case the death of the victim. The conspirators, they cannot afterwards claim that they plan to rob only and not to kill, and that if someone in the group killed in the course of the robbery, he alone should be responsible. Any person with ordinary foresight can foresee that committing robbery with the use of force upon person always entails danger of injuring or killing the victim, especially if the conspirators plan to commit and did commit their dastardly act while armed and in a group. Any member of a band who is present at the commission of a robbery by the band. A principal of inducement who did not go with the band at the place of the commission of the robbery is not liable for robbery with homicide, but only for robbery in a band, there being no evidence that they gave instructions to kill the victim or intended that this should be done. And the Supreme Court held that when Serasio Ibanez furnished the transportation for other defendants, he did so for the purpose of having the defendants rob the two stores. Robbery was his principal objective. It is true that homicide resulted in the occasion of robbery, but there is nothing in the record to show or tends to show that Ceriaco gave instructions to kill the Chinaman who intended that this should be done. When the Chinaman was killed, the robbery had already been committed. The murder was an incident to the robbery, which places the crime insofar as other accused are concerned in a different class. Yet under these facts and circumstances, Ceriaco cannot be held to be a principal in the commission of the crime or class of robbery but he is a principal in the commission of the other class, robbery in a band. There is nothing in this record to show that he planned or conspired to commit the robbery. It's been suggested that as he, Ceriaco, entered into an agreement with the other defendants to commit the crime of robbery, he is responsible for all the result of that crime, as he knew that the death might be necessary incident to the carrying of the effect of his plan. If the death of the Chinaman had occurred in the very act or at the very time that the robbery took place, or while it was ongoing, or it had been necessary to kill the Chinaman in order to successfully rob the stores, then the question might have been different, a question which we do not now decide. But as the actual taking of the property had already been terminated, we think that in an absence of proof showing that the murder was part of the original plan, that the foregoing holding is the correct one. Note that in Article 296 is not applicable to principal by induction who was not present at the commission of the robbery if the agreement was only to commit robbery. The article speaks of more than 3 armed malefactors who take part in the commission of the robbery and the member of the band who is present at the commission of a robbery by a band. But the principal in induction would be liable for homicide or other crimes that might have resulted if he also ordered the killing of a particular person, or that anyone who resists the robbery or the commission of other crimes. Conspiracy was for robbery only, but homicide was also committed on the occasion thereof. All members of the band are liable for robbery with homicide. The culprits form a band. They agreed to commit robbery only. While ransacking for the loot in the store, a patrolman arrived and there was an exchange of shots. The patrolman was killed, ruling. As all the accused were present when the homicide occurred and none of them intended to prevent the homicide, all are liable for robbery with homicide. Whenever homicide is committed as a consequence of or on the occasion of robbery. All those who took part in the commission of the robbery are also guilty as principals of the crime of homicide, unless it appears that they endeavor to prevent the same. Proof of conspiracy is not necessary when 4 or more armed persons commit robbery. Proof of conspiracy is not necessary to hold a member of the band liable for robbery with homicide actually committed by other members of the band. There is no crime as robbery with homicide in a band. In the present wording of Article 295, there is no crime as robbery with homicide in a band. If the robbery with homicide is committed by a band, the indictable offense would still be denominated as robbery with homicide under Article 294, Paragraph 1, but the circumstance that it was committed by a band would be appreciated as an ordinary aggravating circumstance. The denomination of the offense in the case of People versus Garduque should be robbery with rape under Article 294, Paragraph 2. There is no crime as robbery in band with multiple rape. Robbery in a band, all are liable for any assault committed by the band unless others attempted to prevent the assault. People versus Garduque. Facts of the case: while the inhabitants of the house were asleep, 6 men armed with revolvers, bolos, and batangas knives entered the house. The malefactors forced open the trunks of the house, took jewels, money, and clothes kept therein. They also looted the store. Afterwards, they took turns in ravishing the 3 maid servants. In their defense, 2 of the defendants denied having raped the maid servants held. Even assuming that at the moment they did not participate in raping the maids, they are nonetheless guilty as principals in the complex crime of robbery in a band with multiple rape as provided in paragraph 2 of Article 26 of the RPC, because there is no showing that they attempted to prevent the commission of the crime, multiple rape, which has been clearly established in the evidence on record. When rape is not committed, when rape is not considered any of the assaults committed by the band. When rape is not considered any of the assaults committed by the band, but where in the course of the robbery of a band, the offended woman was taken by one of the accused to a place away from the house where the robbery was committed, where he raped her without the knowledge of his companions, he alone is guilty of the robbery with rape. His companions would be guilty of simple robbery by a band. Note that the members of the band liable for the assault must be present at the commission of the robbery, not necessarily at the commission of the assault, without prejudice to the criminal liability for illegal possession of unlicensed firearm. In addition to his criminal liability for robbery by a band, the accused is also liable for illegal possession of firearm, which is penalized under PD number 1866. Republic Act number 2894 considers the use of an unlicensed firearm under murder or homicide merely a special aggravating circumstance and not a separate crime. Violation of PD 1866 is an offense distinct from murder or homicide, and the accused is culpable for 2 separate offenses. RA 8294 amended PD 1866 by reducing the penalties and considering the use of an unlicensed firearm simply as an aggravating circumstance in murder or homicide. In the 3rd paragraph, section 1 of RA 8294, it provides, if homicide or murder is committed with the use of an unlicensed firearm, such use of an unlicensed firearm shall be considered as an aggravating circumstance. In the passage of RA 8294 on June 6, 1997, the use of an unlicensed firearm in murder or homicide is now considered not as a separate crime but merely a special aggravating circumstance. The special aggravating circumstance to use the unlicensed firearm is not applicable to robbery with homicide committed by a band. Article 296 in its entirety is designed to amplify and modify the provision on robbery in a band, which is nowhere to be found but in Article 295 in relation to subdivisions 3, 4, and 5 of Article 294. Verily, in order that the aforesaid special aggravating circumstance, the use of unlicensed firearm may be appreciated to justify the imposition of the maximum period of the proper penalty, it is a condition sine qua non that the offense charged the robbery committed by the band within the contemplation of Article 295. To reiterate, since Article 295 does not apply to subdivisions 1 and 2 of Article 294, then the special aggravating factor in question, which is solely applicable to robbery in a band under Article 295, cannot be considered in fixing the penalty imposable for robbery with homicide under Article 294, Paragraph 1, even if the said crime was committed by a band with the use of unlicensed firearm. In view of the ruling in the case of People versus Abduhan, the use of an unlicensed firearm is not a special aggravating circumstance in robbery with rape or intentional mutilation, and in robbery with physical injuries defined in subdivisions 1 of Article 263. The use of firearm, whether licensed or unlicensed, in making the intimidation as a qualifying circumstance when robbery defined in any of the paragraphs 3, 4, and 5. Article 294 is committed on a street, on a road, or a highway or alley. Article 295 makes no distinction as regards the firearm used in making the intimidation to commit robbery. Hence, the firearm may be licensed or unlicensed, but the offense committed should not be committed with homicide, robbery with rape, robbery with intentional mutilation, or robbery with severe physical injuries where the injured person became insane, imbecile, impotent, or blind. The robbery must be defined and penalized in any of the paragraphs 3, 4, and 5 of Article 294 and committed on the street, road, highway, or alleyway. Article 295. And robbery defined in any of the paragraphs 3, 4, and 5 of Article 294 perpetrated by a band using the unlicensed firearm, the penalty is maximum period of the proper penalty. This is not an ordinary aggravating circumstance.